So in this video, I hope that I gave you a general picture of what admission interviews are all about. So we're going to cover 5 things today, and I'm going to talk about who's going to need an admission interview, as this is not mandatory for all universities. And you guys will also know how the interview is going to be conducted, what will be its structure, and then I'm going to talk about the question types so that you know what to expect during the admission interviews. And I'm also going to talk about the proper dress code and how you can be prepared for your interviews. Okay, so let's move into the first topic. Generally speaking, not all of the universities require an interview, so please go and check out their admission page or the common data set to see whether an interview is required. For Canadian universities, there are a few universities requiring an interview, and these include the University of Toronto Roadman Commerce and Engineering Program, University of British Columbia Selder Commerce Program, University of Waterloo Accounting and Engineering Program, and the Engineering Program in McMaster University. So be prepared if you're going to apply to those majors in those universities. So basically speaking, the admission interviews will be conducted in 3 different ways. For most of the US colleges, what they will do is the alumni interview, or you get interviewed directly by an admission officer. But alumni interviews are more usual because, the admission officers are super busy. In most cases, the interview will be carried out online via Skype, unless you're in their city or there's one alumni available in your city, and then you guys will do this interview face-to-face. For the Canadian university applicants, if you want to apply to all those majors in the universities I just mentioned, you guys will do the recorded interview, which means that you will be given an account, and when you log in, there will be a system with several interview questions popping out, and you will be given 1 to 3 minutes to prepare and then record your answer in front of a camera. So this kind of interview will be more self-paced because you don't have to schedule with a real interviewer. And for Chinese students who are studying in mainland China, you guys will need to do an initial view if you apply to some of the universities in America that require interviews. And there will be 2 parts in that initial view. So basically, there will be a 15 minutes interview with the interviewer, and then a creative writing session where you need to write a short story for a given topic. But no matter what kind of interview it is, the purposes are the same, which is to know more about you. Generally speaking, most of the colleges will only take interviews as considered. They're not going to weigh them as much as your GPA, essays, and actual curricular activities. However, if you're applying to Canadian universities, then the interviews I just talked about will be very important for you. This is because some of the universities like McMaster, University of Toronto will put essay question and interview question together in their supplementary application. So when you start the supplementary application, you will be required to complete 2 to 3 essay questions and 2 to 3 interview questions within a limited time. And although Waterloo and UBC don't use the same system, the interviews will still be very important for the admission officers, as generally admission officers in Canadian universities don't have that much information about you comparing with their counterparts in the US colleges. So they will make full use of all available materials they have on hand to evaluate your profile. And don't panic. Generally, just take the interview as a casual chatting where you talk about something about you with another person. And although for US college applicants, interviews may not as important as essays in your GPAs, etc., it will still be a very good opportunity to showcase yourself and your strengths. So, what kind of questions you would expect in the admission interviews? So just have a look at the picture I posted on my screen now. So there won't be any weird questions. All of the questions will be about your background, and many of the questions are quite similar to the essay questions. So when you prepare for your interview, you can use this picture as a framework to come up with interview questions to practice. Some may be wondering what the big thinking questions mean there. Well, simply put, during the interview, sometimes the interviewers may ask you questions about, some social issues or your opinion towards a future trend, etc. For example, some of the admission officers may ask you questions like, what do you think AI will change the world? Those kind of questions count as, what I call the big thinking questions. And there's another type of question which I didn't list on this framework, which I call the problem-solving questions. The reason why I didn't list this question in this framework is that you will only see this type of question if you want to apply to the engineering major in University of Toronto and a McMaster. So the problem-solving questions will be something like this. So what you're looking at now is a sample question of the problem solving. Since this kind of question will only appear in those 2 universities interviews, I won't talk about the strategies for now. So do leave me a message if you want to know how I answer this kind of questions. And I'll do a separate video to talk about it if it's really needed by many of you. And as you can see, this question asks you to list the 3 factors to calculate the number of primary school needed in the city with 5 million people. So in most of the cases, it will be given 3 minutes to prepare and another 3 minutes to respond. And like a lot of students are not quite familiar with how to answer this kind of question. So it takes some time to do some practice before you start doing this interview. And speaking of the dress code, I would say just business casual will be totally fine. Just make sure that you don't wear any weird clothes. So if you don't know what is a business casual, simply ask your parents to help you out. However, one thing I just want to remind you here is that don't wear your school uniform. This is very obvious, but it surprised me that many of my students should take wearing their school uniform as an option. But this is not actually proper. So this picture in the slides actually show you some examples for both boys and girls in terms of how to wear business casual.